Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's executive briefing. My name is Alex Neem, and I'm a consultant with the Center for Organizational Design. The center has helped firms such as Rockwell, AT&T, Corning, and mid-sized firms around the world deliver superior results through high-performance leadership principles. And in today's session, we're going to include a Q&A session as well. And again, my name is Alex, and I'll be helping to moderate the questions. Presenting today is Dr. Roger Allen, co-founder of the center. Roger has led projects all around the world, and he's also a thought leader on the topic of leadership, having authored dozens of articles and white papers, and also speaking on the topic of high-performance leaderships all around the world. And for the next 30 minutes or so, Roger's going to share a proven 7-step formula on how to get the most from your people. And as I said, we'll have a Q&A session as well. So at this point, without further ado, let me go ahead and turn it over to Roger. And Roger, as I said, the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Welcome, everybody. It's good to be with you today. And let me just give you a little bit of background. Preston Pond and I are the co-founders of the Center for Organizational Design, and Preston will be doing some of these presentations in the future. But I just wanted to acknowledge that Preston is my partner, and the two of us formed the Center for Organizational Design about 20 years ago. And our purpose is to create high-performance organizations, and the definition that we give high performance is an organization in which each person is a contributing partner in the business. In other words, we want to help create work cultures in which every person feels valued, is able to contribute, in which each person inside of the organization feels and behaves, I should say, like an owner in the business, which is really what we're going to be touching on today. How do we create a climate? How do we create a culture in which people really give, really contribute to the organization? You know, we've had incredible technological advances over the last 10 years, 15 years, and in fact, we live in a digital age that is absolutely astounding, and in most industries has made incredible changes in the way companies do business. But I want to suggest that ultimately it's people who create value within your organization. In fact, there are many, many assets in any organization, but it's people that are the most important asset, and in fact the only asset that appreciates over time. As a matter of fact, if you stop and think about it, you know, software, technology, many, many other assets depreciate once they've been purchased, but your people should appreciate. In other words, an employee should be worth more after 3 months on the job than the first day on the job, certainly after a year on the job, after a couple of years on the job. And the question is, how do we take advantage? How do we create a climate in which people really are able to contribute and give their all? I also believe that nobody starts a job. I mean, I believe that people really want to succeed and people want to contribute. Nobody starts a new job thinking, I'm going to see how mediocre I can be. I'm going to see if I can fail. I'm going to see if I can't make my customers or my coworkers' lives miserable. People really care. Deep down inside, they bring enormous goodwill. They want to make a positive contribution. But my experience has been that over time, the passion and the commitment begin to diminish. People find themselves in organizations that may not value their contribution, and they become discouraged. They bump up against organizational barrier systems, bureaucracies, even attitudes from leaders that prevent them from really contributing to the organization. So they learn to keep their heads down, to mind their own business, to focus on their own job. They stop caring about what happens upstream, downstream. They learn to watch the clock, collect their paychecks, and go home. And really, at the Center for Organizational Design, we're all about preventing that. So let me just share. Let me share, in fact, a few examples, some of the research that is being done these days on employee engagement, and the results are pretty incredible. 75% of workers today are disengaged from their jobs. 20% are actively disengaged, meaning not only are they retired in place, just doing the minimal possible, but they are actually alienated and may even be feeling hostile toward their companies. 25% of people report that they work at their full potential. 50% report that they work just hard enough to keep their jobs, and 75% of people say that they could be significantly more productive. And by the way, this isn't a single study. There are many, many studies. There are a number of studies that indicate these kind of results. There's a lot of alienation, certainly within North America, within the workforce today. We simply are not engaging and utilizing our people as effectively as we could be. So I'm going to be talking about 7 different practices that we can use as leaders to better engage our people. And one is share information generously, address performance problems directly, encourage employees to solve problems when and where they occur, provide training and development, share responsibility widely, listen, think we, not I. What I'd like to do is talk about each of these in a little more detail, and as Alex suggested, also leave time for questions and answers. Number 1, share information generously. I believe that people cannot truly be business partners if they're in the dark, if they don't know what's going on within the organization. And my belief is that the single most important change leaders can make, in fact, oftentimes the lead system that needs to change, if you want to change the culture of an organization, has to do with communication and particularly information sharing. People need to understand the business. They need to know what's going on within the business if they're going to think and act like partners within the business. When I walk into a new company, I oftentimes like to mingle with people who do the core work of the organization, not just the leaders, but the people that provide the core service or do build the product. And I'll walk around and ask questions like this to gauge how much information and how knowledge people have and how knowledgeable they are. I'll ask questions like, what are the annual sales of your company? What are your company's primary business objectives? Who are your most important customers? What are the major factors that are influencing the growth of your business? Who are your competitors? What percentage of the market do you own? What are your most serious quality or service problems? What are your business units' goals? Do you know your overhead expenses? What information do you need that you're not getting? And that's just a sampling of the kind of questions, but I like to ask questions to get a read on how well people understand what's going on in the business. And then what is important is that organizations create a plan that consists of what information they need to share, who will share it, how they will share it, how frequently they will share it, but create a plan to share information more generously about the business. Second practice is address performance problems directly. Lots of companies have people who are free riders, and these are outliers, by the way. I truly do believe that most people want to succeed. Most people want to contribute. They bring goodwill to the workplace. But there are some people that have been overindulged, let's say, and they want a free ride. They benefit more than they contribute. And they may have bad attitudes. They may not work very hard. And the problem is they demoralize everyone around them. And part of my experience as a consultant for a number of years is that this is one of the most sensitive and difficult leadership issues, performance management. A lot of leaders have a hard time knowing how to step up to these performance problems. But I want to suggest that if you want to create a high-performing organization, you have to be willing to do so. You have to be willing to sit down with those people that are causing the performance problems and confront them, talk to them. Sometimes you have to make sure you have upper leadership agreement and support, as well as enroll HR, have HR support, but it is absolutely critical that you address the performance problems if you're going to become a high-performing company. A third practice is to empower people to solve problems when and where they occur. You know, I'm working with a pharmaceutical company right now, and they face an incredible challenge of making more compounds, more complex compounds, and at a faster rate than ever before. As a matter of fact, they have been challenged to triple their volume over the next few years, an incredible challenge, which requires all hands on deck. But what happens today, let's say out on the manufacturing line, is when a problem occurs, people stand around waiting for somebody to come and fix it. They're waiting for a supervisor to come and tell them what to do, or they're waiting for an engineer or somebody from quality to come in and solve the problem for them. In many cases, they know what they need to do. Certainly there are complex situations in which a subject matter expert does need to come in, but there are many, many times in which people have the capability of solving problems when and where they occur. We just need to give them permission. We need to remove the barriers that keep people from solving problems. So we believe very much in the Center for Organization Design, in pushing responsibility and pushing decision-making to as low a level in the organization as possible. Now, that doesn't happen by magic. Leadership has to change its role from simply controlling and directing people to providing the context in which people can be successful by providing information, by clarifying desired outcomes, by setting up boundary conditions in which people work, by communicating with them the authority that they need to do their jobs or have to do their jobs, by providing them tools and skills and so on. So leadership creates the context, but we want to create a work environment in which problems are solved at the point of occurrence rather than moving them up the chain of command. A fourth practice is providing training and development. American Society of Training and Development recommends 40 hours per year per employee. And a lot of organizations tend to balk at that. You know, they see training as an expense, not an investment, and they're hesitant to really invest in their people. But there are many, many studies, a couple of them which I'm quoting here, many, many studies that indicate that those companies that invest in training for their people actually perform significantly, not only outperform, but also generate greater profitability because they have a more capable and a more engaged workforce. For example, there was a study, 575 companies were studied for 3 years. Those that invested the most received a 36.9% total return as compared with 25.5% for the marketplace in general, 45% higher than market average. So a lot of research that indicates the importance of training. People need training in their core technical skills. They need training also, though, in skills related to teaming and communication and giving and receiving feedback and resolving conflict. And if we truly want an empowered workforce, then we need to invest in that workforce by providing them lots of development, lots of training opportunities. That is a fourth practice that is critical to getting the most from your people. Another is to share responsibility. And when I say share responsibility, I'm talking about, if you look at this particular diagram, typically we expect people to do their core work, whatever the work is that forms the major part of their job description. But in addition to that, as Preston and I through the years have worked with companies, we have encouraged them to create a climate, a team climate, in which people are able to take on additional responsibilities. If you look at many of these, and I call these coordinating responsibilities. If you look at these coordinating tasks, all of them have to be done in order for an organization to succeed. Well, in your traditional organization, those tasks are usually done by either technical department, subject matter experts, or by a manager or a supervisor. What happens in a high-performance organization is that people take on a greater number of roles and responsibilities. For example, coordinating and scheduling work. is something that can not only be done by a supervisor, but there may be other people in addition that can take on coordination and scheduling of work. Facilitating meetings, that can may not only be a supervisor, but there may be other people who can coordinate, even if it's just a 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute stand-up meeting at the beginning of a shift or at the beginning of a day. There are many people that have the capability of facilitating meetings, setting goals as teams become more high-performing and as people become more engaged in the workplace. They can take a greater part in setting goals, or providing customer feedback, or interfacing with other departments. Anyway, you can see that there are a number of responsibilities here. And again, this doesn't happen simply by magic or by accident or instantaneously. In fact, back in the 90s when Preston and I started doing our work, we found that there was a lot of talk about teams and about even high-performance teams. Upper management would say, hey, we want to create teams, and they communicated that almost as an edict, expecting that by saying those words, people would start acting as though they were members of teams. Well, the truth is it requires a lot of preparation work, that leadership needs to create the context in which teams can thrive. And so we have what we call an empowerment matrix, as a matter of fact, that corresponds with these shared responsibilities. For any given responsibility, we have people complete a matrix, coordinating and scheduling work, for example, that includes a description of exactly what that means, bullet points. What does it mean to coordinate and to schedule work? What are the boundary conditions or the desired expectations from doing that work? What is the level of authority that somebody who would be doing that work would have? What are the skills that a person needs? What are the resources that a person needs available to him or her to be able to do that work? So we have to think through carefully the meaning of these shared responsibilities and how to delegate and how to transition them from leaders to workers. But it can be done, and as we engage in that process, people become a lot more involved, a lot more committed, a lot more excited about their work. Let me move on to another topic, and that is listening. Again, research shows that the most important factor in an individual's job satisfaction is his or her relationship with their boss. Nothing is more important. In fact, most of the time when people quit, when they leave their employment, it's because they don't feel good about their working relationship with their boss. Well, and the single most important factor in a positive relationship with your boss is listening. People want to know that they have a boss who will listen, who will hear them, who will appreciate their thoughts, appreciate who they are personally, but also appreciate their experience on the job and their concerns on the job, and be willing to listen to their concerns and also listen to their contribution. People will perform when they know that they're valued and their eyes will be heard. It reminds me of a fellow by the name of Mitchell. And Mitchell was working in a plant for many, many, many years. And he had an idea about how to change the workflow and make it more efficient and make it more productive. But he had supervisor after supervisor come and go. Nobody really listened to him. One day a new engineer stopped, listened to him, and said, wow, that's a fantastic idea. I can't believe that nobody has picked up on this before. She took the idea back to senior management. They began implementing it, one line, then another line, then another line, eventually throughout the organization, saved the company millions of dollars every year. Well, they flew Mitchell, wanted to acknowledge and honor him, so they actually flew him from the city that he was living in, Philadelphia, to Chicago for a corporate dinner, and he received an award for his contribution to the company. And that night, or the next day, as he was flying home, his plane hit severe turbulence and was bouncing up and down and all over the sky. And this was one of the first times that this guy had ever flown. And but you know, he got off after he got off that plane. He said, even if we had crashed, I mean, it's almost a little bit comical, but he said, even if we had crashed, it would have been okay. It would have been worth it, because for the first time, somebody really listened to my idea. They acknowledged what I had to say, and I feel so validated. I feel like I have made a contribution to my company. Well, somehow as leaders, we need to be able to listen. In fact, we were talking about what Alex had mentioned, a trip that I had taken. I was working with a client down in southern Florida last week, and part of the purpose was to provide feedback to the general manager of this facility. Great capability, a man with great capability, but has alienated his people because he doesn't listen. And we spent 2 days off-site with them giving him feedback. Unfortunately, he accepted the feedback. He was open to it and willing to hear, and hopefully there are going to be some, you know, pretty significant changes that he makes. But his people were saying to him essentially, hey, we're on your team. You're not listening to us. You're imposing your agenda. We have good ideas too. We need you to hear us. And that was the shift that took place this last week. Finally, think we, not I. I want to make sure that I leave a few minutes for questions. So let me talk just 1 minute about the meaning of thinking we and not I. I can recall, well, I believe, you can see this, one of these bullet points, nobody is smarter than everybody. And as a matter of fact, there is a wonderful book, best-selling book. It's called The Wisdom of Crowds. Typically, we don't think of crowds as very smart. We think of individuals as smart, and we think of crowds or groups, in fact, as dumb. But there is a tremendous amount of research that indicates that crowds, even, not just groups, not just teams, but crowds are smarter than individuals. And I recommend that book to you, The Wisdom of Crowds. But nobody is smarter than everybody, and bringing people together and engaging in collective reasoning and thinking and visioning and brainstorming and problem solving, we are actually able to come up with much better solutions than the brightest people in the room can come up with on their own. I did it was with a major hospital a few years back. I did an off-site with them. And, well, actually what they did was a 360 survey to all of anybody that was in a supervisory management position. So it included the medical staff, doctors, it included nurses, it included administrators. And they wanted me to go off-site. They got the results of the survey back, and probably included around, I don't know, 160 people or so that were managers within this facility. And they selected the top 6 or 7 that were the best performers, that got the highest ratings, and opportunity to go off-site with them, do some training with them for a day, but also pulled from them, asked them to talk to me about what they did that made them so effective. And by the end of the day, we had come up with only about 3. There were only about 3 items on the list, but this was one of them that really that I really appreciated. They shared with me that when they talked to their people, they didn't talk from the point of view of I or me. They talked from the point of view of we. We have a problem. We're facing a situation. What are we together collectively going to do to handle this challenge that we have? And as we begin to talk in terms of we begin to bridge the gap of alienation that separates us versus them, me versus my employees. We come together as one. We recognize that we're all in the boat and we're all rowing together, that we have a collective vision, that we have a collective destiny. So that is the third, or the 7th, I'm sorry, that is the 7th of these practices. So 7 practices to create a high-performing company. And with that, Alex, do you want to jump in and facilitate some questions?
Roger, if you wanted to go ahead and summarize this, and I'll open the floor for questions here. So.
You bet. So, yeah, so the summary would be that your people are your most valuable asset. And whereas most assets depreciate over time, your people have the potential to create more and more value over time. And using the 7 practices that I have been talking about today, by using these 7 practices, I believe that you're going to be able to get more value from your people. And by the way, you don't have to use all of the practices or begin with all of the practices. Take any of these ideas. Think we instead of me. Become a better listener. Start sharing information more generously. Do what you can to support people in getting training. Begin to make these changes that I'm talking about within the workplace, and you'll realize, you'll build goodwill with people, and you'll begin to realize some pretty incredible improvements in your business. How's that, Alex?
That's great, Roger. Well, thanks for that presentation, that training there. So, folks, again, my name is Alex. I wanted to go ahead and just open the floor for taking questions here. We've already had a couple come in, and I appreciate your patience here as we're getting to this. So again, just type in the chat box your question, and then I'll queue that up. And then in the meantime, there's a couple that already came in. So for those who haven't used GoToWebinar before, there's a little hand icon. You can raise your hand, and I'll see the question. You can share it here. And let's see here. Okay, so the first one is I don't see their name, but let's see. It says you to point about emphasizing the listening skill. It says, I consider myself a pretty good listener, but I still get feedback I don't listen enough. Do you have any recommendations?
My first recommendation would be for you to listen by going to the person that has made that comment, or the individuals that have made that comment, and ask them what they mean. Sometimes we try to read minds. Sometimes we try to guess. We make assumptions about where people are coming from. Well, what listening is about is not guessing and not making assumptions, but it's sitting down with the people that we lead in face-to-face dialogue and having them teach us. One of my beliefs is that leaders have to be egoless if they're going to create high-performance organization. We got to get out of the ego, and we got to be willing to be soft-hearted enough and humble enough to let people talk to us and teach us. So that would be my recommendation. Sit down with your group and say, hey, you've told me that I'm not a good listener, or not as good a listener as you would like. Teach me what it means. What does it mean in your mind? How would I show you that I'm a good listener? What can I do?
Okay, and let's see. We have another question here. It says, you mentioned, I think in practice number 5 or 6, about the shared responsibility, and you referenced something called an empowerment matrix. Can you elaborate on that?
I can, and unfortunately, given time, any of these topics, by the way, could be easily a half-a-day seminar, probably. And what I'm doing is giving you an overview and hopefully enough information that you can begin to, use and take some action on what I'm talking about. One of the more complex ideas is that of sharing responsibility, creating shared responsibility. And we have a matrix that we use at the center. The purpose of the matrix is simply to think through, what do people need in order to be able to accept more responsibility, accept and begin to act from expanded roles. And so that the matrix typically includes a definition. If the new responsibility is scheduling, let's say, or if it's facilitating meetings, or if it's doing equipment maintenance, or it would include a description of what the person is expected to do, what outcomes they're expected to make. We just try to think through what is everything that this individual would need in order to perform this role in an excellent way. And what information do they need, and what training do they need, and what reports might they need, or resources might they need access to that they don't have today. So the purpose of the matrix is to think through issues like that.
Okay, and one of our attendees has a question, which is a perfect segue for the next slide. If you can go to the next slide, Roger.
Okay.
The next one after that.
Okay.
Sure. So, folks, we want to honor everybody's time right here. We're about 30 minutes into the presentation, and we do have questions from the audience, which is some variation of the following, which is, do you have a system or framework already set up to help create a better collaborative environment? And the short answer is yes, and which is what why we want to give you this opportunity right here to contact the center and also our team. So if you look on the screen right now, what I want to show with you is like there's a web page already set up. It's at centerod.com/schedule. Again, that's centerod.com/schedule. And really, this is for the folks in the audience who's interested in learning more about this framework and also go more in depth, so we can have a candid conversation about your personal situation at your organization or what you actually like to have better outcomes. So again, what we did is we created this web page right here called centerod.com/schedule, and you can also email us at private@centerod.com. And again, what we want to do here is on this web page, we just have a short questionnaire. You can share with us a little bit more specific information inside your organization, and also what industry you're in, and also what specific challenges or obstacles you're trying to overcome. And really then after that, we can schedule a short conversation with Roger and Preston, or both, the two co-founders of the organization, and I'll help coordinate that. And then, like I said, what we like to do is just find out more about what your specific challenges are and what your obstacles are, so we can actually then have a really personalized conversation. So again, centerod.com/schedule, and also the email is at private@centerod.com. And again, the center specializes in helping create an environment and a culture so you can actually get superior results through high-performance leadership principles. And the intent behind today's presentation, executive briefing, was to really give you a high-level overview of what the capabilities of the organizations are, and also share with you specific actionable items you can go and implement very quickly right after this executive briefing. Like Roger said, you don't have to go take on doing all 7 at once. In fact, I would probably say that's probably going to be a little bit daunting. Pick 1 or 2 or a handful of them and go back and then actually pick the ones that you feel is going to be the lowest hanging fruit and then implement that. And as we said in the email and also at the beginning of the presentation, everybody who's attended this session right here is going to get a checklist of those 7 items. And what we recommend you do is when you get that, print it out and just have it next to you, and just so you can review it on a periodic basis. So that way, when you were trying to implement some of these ideas, you have that information, readily available to you. So as I said, to learn more about the framework and also the system, and then go more in depth and have a personalized conversation about your organization, just go ahead and contact us at centerod.com/schedule, and also email us at private@centerod.com. So with that, Roger, any last minute comments before we wrap it up, and then just
No, it's good to be with you. I hope that what I've had to share has been useful to you. I would love more interaction. Love to be able to talk with you and hear your thoughts and your comments and your questions. But it's been great to be here with you today.
Okay, so again, my name is Alex. On behalf of myself and Roger and Preston and the center, I want to thank all of you for attending our session right here. And again, this is going to be the first of many executive briefings we're going to do, and love to hear your feedback, again, at that email right there. And again, for those of you that like to schedule a session or just to have a dialogue with us about more about what's going on in your organization and to see how we can be of service, certainly contact us at that webpage, centerod.com/schedule, or email us at private@centerod.com. And with that, I want to thank everybody, and I want to wish you a great afternoon, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you again in a future executive briefing. Have a great afternoon, everybody.